The neon lights flickered outside, casting a faint glow over the rain-slicked streets. Jack Turner leaned against the side of his car, eyes scanning the horizon for any signs of movement. He checked his watch, almost 11 p.m. Lily, his 6-year-old daughter, was already in bed, and Jack had just finished his shift at the office. He was about to head home, exhausted but content with another day of hard work. But then his phone buzzed in his pocket. It was a text from his colleague, Emily. "Sophia's in trouble. She's been drinking and is asking for you. Emergency. Call her now." Jack froze. His heart skipped a beat. Sophia Miller, the CEO of the company, the woman who ran the entire operation with an iron fist, the same woman who had never once let her guard down, was in trouble? He quickly dialed her number. It rang a few times before she picked up, her voice barely audible through the phone. "Jack. Help me. I can't. I can't get home. Help me. Please." Her words were slurred, and Jack could barely make sense of them. He could hear music in the background, laughter, and the sound of clinking glasses. "Where are you, Sophia?" Jack asked, his voice calm but filled with concern. I'm at the Nighthawk. Just come, please. I'm so lost. I can't be alone tonight." Without thinking, Jack grabbed his car keys and sped off, his mind racing. This wasn't just another late-night work emergency. This was something different. Sophia, the woman who had always been composed, poised, and in control, was now reaching out to him for help. Jack's heart went out to her. The drive to the Nighthawk, a popular upscale bar in the city, took just under 15 minutes, but Jack couldn't shake the feeling of unease. What had happened? Why was she in such a state? When he arrived, the sight that greeted him was nothing like he had imagined. The bar was dimly lit, the music pulsing through the air, but the crowd was sparse. In the corner, Jack saw her Sophia. She was slumped over the bar, barely holding herself up, her face flushed red from the alcohol. Her normally pristine appearance was now disheveled. Her dress, which had always exuded elegance in the office, now hung loosely, and her makeup was smeared across her face. "Sophia?" Jack's voice was soft, yet it broke through the haze of her drunken stupor. She looked up slowly, blinking at him in confusion. A flicker of recognition crossed her face, but it was gone just as quickly. "Jack," she whispered, slurring his name. "You came. You really came." Jack took a cautious step forward, gently placing a hand on her shoulder. "Of course, I did. Let's get you home." Sophia's head swayed as she tried to stand up, but her legs buckled beneath her. Jack was quick to catch her, wrapping his arm around her waist to steady her. No. I can't go home. I can't face anyone right now," she muttered, her voice breaking. Jack's heart sank. Sophia, the CEO of the company, the woman who always had control over everything, was now completely vulnerable. "You're not facing anyone, Sophia," Jack said softly. "You're facing me. And right now, I'm getting you out of here." Sophia's eyes glazed over as she leaned against him. "Why do you care?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm just a mess." Jack didn't know how to answer that. All he knew was that she needed him. And for some strange reason, he wasn't going to leave her in this state. The drive back to her apartment was quiet, save for the occasional hiccup or soft mumble from Sophia. Jack kept his eyes on the road, trying to focus, but his thoughts kept drifting back to what had just happened. Sophia Miller, the woman who ran a multi-billion-dollar company, was sitting in the passenger seat of his car, drunk and broken. Jack couldn't wrap his mind around it. She had always been so untouchable, so distant. And now she was so human, so vulnerable. Sophia let out a soft sob, and Jack's heart clenched. He didn't know what to do. He wasn't sure if he should say something, do something, or just keep driving. But he couldn't ignore it. Sophia was suffering, and he had to help. "I'm sorry," she whispered, breaking the silence. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen. It just... everything fell apart, and I don't know how to fix it." Jack looked at her, his voice steady but filled with empathy. "You don't have to fix it alone. Let me help." For a brief moment, Sophia's gaze met his, and in that fleeting look, Jack saw something he'd never seen before. Fear. Real, raw fear. The kind of fear that came from deep inside, a fear of failure, of being exposed, of losing everything. Jack didn't know what the future held for her or him, but for now, he was going to make sure she was safe. He had no idea what she was going through, but he understood one thing. She needed him. They arrived at her apartment building just after midnight. Jack helped her out of the car, wrapping her arm around his shoulder for support. Sophia leaned heavily on him as they walked into the building. Just a little further, Sophia murmured, stumbling as they made their way to her apartment. When they finally reached the door, Jack fumbled with the keys in his hand. He managed to get the door open and guided her inside. Her apartment was spacious and minimalistic, just as Jack imagined, expensive but cold. Sophia collapsed onto the couch, her head falling back with a soft thud. "I can't stay here, Jack," she whispered, her eyes closing. "I can't face another day like this." Jack didn't know what to say. He had no experience with this kind of thing. But he knew one thing for sure: he wasn't leaving her alone. "I'll stay," Jack said simply, his voice low but firm. "You're not alone, Sophia." And for the first time in what seemed like forever, Sophia relaxed. She closed her eyes, her breathing slow and steady. Jack stayed by her side, not knowing what tomorrow would bring, but for now, he would stay. The next morning, Jack woke up on the couch. The faint sunlight filtered through the windows, casting long shadows on the floor. His neck was sore, but his mind was clear. He glanced around the room and saw Sophia sitting at the kitchen counter, her back turned to him. "Morning," Jack said softly, rubbing his eyes. Sophia didn't reply immediately. Instead, she set the mug down in front of her and turned to face him. There was something different about her, something that wasn't there last night. She met his gaze, her expression unreadable. "I don't know what to say." Jack shrugged, sitting up on the couch. "You don't have to say anything." "I'm sorry," she began, her voice surprisingly steady. "For last night, for everything." Jack didn't know what to say. "You don't owe me an apology," he replied quietly. Sophia gave him a small, almost imperceptible smile, then turned her attention back to the coffee in front of her. But Jack couldn't help but wonder, what did all this mean for them? Was this just a one-time thing? Or was something changing between them? Jack sat up on the couch, his eyes scanning the room, taking in the scene. The apartment was quiet, almost serene, in stark contrast to the chaos of the previous night. Sophia was at the kitchen counter, her back turned to him, her posture rigid. The morning light filtered through the blinds, casting long shadows across the room, but it didn't seem to reach the tension that hung in the air between them. "Morning," Jack said softly, his voice rough from lack of sleep. Sophia didn't respond immediately. She continued to sip her coffee, staring at the countertop as if lost in thought. After what seemed like an eternity, she placed her mug down gently and turned to face him. Her expression was unreadable, distant. "I don't know what to say," she finally said, her voice hesitant, her usual confidence nowhere to be found. Jack shifted uncomfortably on the couch. He had no idea what to say either. The night had been a blur of raw emotion, vulnerability, and a side of Sophia he had never seen before. But now, in the light of day, everything felt different. The walls between them felt thicker, as if the space they had shared during that vulnerable moment last night was already beginning to recede. "You don't have to say anything," Jack replied quietly. "I'm just glad you're okay." Sophia looked at him, her eyes meeting his for the first time that morning. There was a flicker of something in her gaze, regret, maybe, or perhaps gratitude, but it was gone in a flash. "I'm sorry for last night," she said, her voice steady, but tinged with something more. "I didn't want you to see me like that. I didn't want anyone to see me like that." Jack stood up from the couch, stretching his stiff limbs. He walked over to the counter, leaning against it casually, trying to close the distance between them without overstepping. "You don't need to apologize, Sophia," he said. "Everyone has their moments. It's okay." She shook her head, taking another sip of coffee. "It's not okay. I've always been the one in control, the one people look up to. And last night, I just lost it. I don't even know who I am anymore." Jack watched her closely, his expression softening. He could hear the cracks in her voice, the vulnerability she tried so hard to keep hidden. For the first time, he saw a person, just a person behind the CEO. Behind the persona of someone who had it all together. "You don't have to have everything figured out," Jack said, his voice low and understanding. "Nobody does. You've been through a lot. But that doesn't define you, it doesn't change who you are." Sophia looked at him, her brow furrowing slightly, as if she were searching for something in his words. She sighed, rubbing her temples as if trying to shake off the weight of the morning. "I know that," she said, her voice tired. But it's hard to keep pretending when everything feels like it's falling apart. Jack took a step closer to her, his presence gentle but steady. He wanted to reach out, to offer comfort, but he didn't know if that was what she needed. Instead, he simply stood there, allowing her to take in his words without pressure. "You don't have to pretend with me," he said softly. "I'm not going anywhere." Sophia's eyes flickered to him again, and this time, there was something different in her gaze. It wasn't just gratitude or regret, it was something deeper, more vulnerable. A softening of the walls she had spent years building. There was a long silence as they stood there, just the two of them in this quiet moment of connection. Finally, Sophia spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm scared, Jack." Jack felt his heart tighten at the raw honesty in her words. "What are you scared of?" "I'm scared of failing. I'm scared of losing everything I've worked for. And I'm scared of people seeing me the way I really am. Not the CEO, not the perfect leader, but just me." Jack didn't hesitate. He stepped closer, his voice firm with conviction. "You don't have to be perfect. You're human, Sophia. And that's okay. You don't have to carry everything by yourself." For the first time, he saw her shoulders relax slightly, as if the weight she'd been carrying for so long had lessened just a little. "I don't know what I would have done without you last night," she said, her voice tinged with a new layer of vulnerability. "You didn't have to stay, but you did." Jack gave her a small, reassuring smile. "I meant what I said. You're not alone." Sophia nodded slowly, taking in his words. She looked at him with a mixture of gratitude and something more, something Jack couldn't quite place, but it was there, lingering between them. For a moment, neither of them spoke. It felt like a new beginning, a turning point in their relationship. Jack didn't know what would happen next, whether this was just a passing moment of connection or something that would change everything between them. But for now, he was content with this quiet understanding. The days that followed were a strange mix of professional normalcy and subtle shifts in their dynamic. At the office, nothing overtly changed. Sophia was still the CEO, still the leader, everyone respected. But something had shifted between her and Jack. There were moments when their eyes would meet across the conference table, and in those moments, there was a flicker of something unspoken, something that neither of them fully understood. Sophia had been quieter than usual, more reflective. She still carried herself with the same authority. But Jack could see the cracks those moments when the weight of everything she was holding back seemed to catch up with her. One afternoon, Jack was going over some financial reports when Sophia entered his office. It was just the two of them. The office was unusually quiet. Sophia stood by the door, hesitating for a moment before speaking. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice softer than usual. Jack looked up from his desk, surprised but not unwilling. "Of course. What's on your mind?" She closed the door behind her and walked over to his desk, leaning against it casually. "I've been thinking about what you said last week, about not being perfect." Jack raised an eyebrow but remained silent, waiting for her to continue. "I've been trying so hard to keep up this image," she said, her voice laced with a quiet frustration. "And for what? So people can admire me? So they'll think I've got it all together? It's exhausting, Jack. And honestly, I don't want to do it anymore." Jack sat back in his chair, his gaze never leaving her face. "You don't have to. You can let go of the image. People will respect you more if you're just yourself." Sophia's eyes softened, and for a moment, she looked uncertain, almost fragile. "I don't know how to stop being the person I've built up over all these years. But maybe it's time to try." Jack smiled gently, standing up and walking over to her. "Then take it one step at a time. You don't have to change everything all at once. Just be who you are, and the rest will follow." Sophia took a deep breath, her eyes meeting his with an intensity that made Jack's heart race. "Thank you, Jack. I don't think I could have gotten this far without you." It was clear now. What had begun as a simple act of kindness on Jack's part had sparked something neither of them could ignore. They were no longer just boss and employee. The line between their professional relationship and something deeper had blurred, and it was something neither of them was ready to define. But it was real. And Jack knew, no matter where this journey took them, they would face it together. And for the first time in a long while, he wasn't afraid of the unknown. Days passed, and the city felt like it was moving at a constant rush, yet Jack couldn't shake the weight of the events that had unfolded. It was like a different version of his life had started the moment he picked up that phone call. The one that brought him into Sophia's world, not the confident, poised CEO everyone admired, but the real Sophia, the one who was struggling behind the polished mask. Every day at the office, things were changing. Little by little, Sophia was letting go of her impervious exterior. She had started listening to Jack more, consulting him on decisions she normally wouldn't have. Her sharp, authoritative demeanor softened, and it was clear to anyone who watched them that something had shifted. But neither of them said it out loud. One late afternoon, Jack found himself in the conference room, reviewing documents when Sophia walked in, her usual poise replaced by a visible tension. "Jack," she said, her voice low, almost hesitant, "can you join me for a minute?" Jack looked up, surprised. "Of course. What's up?" Sophia didn't sit down. She stood by the window, gazing out at the skyline. The setting sun cast a warm orange hue across the room, but it didn't reach the uncertainty that clouded her expression. "I need your advice," she began, turning to face him. "I've been offered a major opportunity, but I don't know if it's the right move. I could take the company to the next level, but it could change everything." Jack felt a knot form in his stomach. He knew this moment had been coming. It was a decision that would test the limits of their working relationship and perhaps something deeper. "What's the catch?" Jack asked, leaning forward, his eyes locked on hers. Sophia's eyes flickered to him, a hint of vulnerability passing over her face. "The deal involves a partnership with a global firm. They want us to pivot our company's focus to a completely different market. If we say yes, we could have the funding and resources to dominate the industry, but at what cost?" Her hands fidgeted with a pen, a clear sign of her inner conflict. Jack could sense the gravity of the decision. This wasn't just about business, it was about everything Sophia had worked for, everything she had built. "What's the problem?" he asked, keeping his voice steady. "It sounds like a huge opportunity." Sophia hesitated, then said in a quiet voice, "I'm scared, Jack. If I take this deal, I'll have to compromise a lot of the company's values. I'll have to lead the charge into a market that feels wrong. But the money and success would be too big to ignore." Jack stood up, walking over to her, feeling the weight of the decision in the room. "And you're afraid of losing yourself in the process?" Sophia nodded slowly. "Yes, I've spent so much time building this empire. I've made sacrifices. But I'm starting to realize that maybe what I'm building isn't what I thought it would be. What if I'm compromising everything I believe in?" The tension between them grew thicker, and Jack could feel the shift in the air. This was more than just a business decision for Sophia, it was a crisis of identity. She was at a crossroads, unsure of the path to take. "What do you want to do, Sophia?" Jack asked, his voice soft but direct. "What do you really want?" Her eyes met his, and for a moment, there was an unspoken understanding between them, something deeper than just advice. Sophia didn't answer immediately. Instead, she stepped back, her gaze drifting toward the horizon outside the window. "I don't know," she whispered, her voice trembling. The next morning, the phone rang just as Jack was preparing to leave for the office. The caller ID showed it was Sophia. Jack answered, half expecting another update on the deal. But this time, her voice was different, there was panic in it. "Jack, I need you to come to my apartment. It's urgent." His heart skipped a beat. The urgency in her voice left no room for questions. He grabbed his jacket, grabbed his keys, and rushed out of the office, his mind racing. What could be so urgent? Was something wrong? When he arrived at Sophia's apartment, the door was slightly ajar. His mind raced as he pushed it open and entered, his footsteps echoing in the silence. But what he saw next made his blood run cold. Sophia was standing by the window, her back to him. She didn't seem to notice his presence at first. Then, slowly, she turned around, her face pale and stricken with fear. "Jack." Her voice cracked. "I've made a huge mistake." He rushed to her side. "What happened? Are you okay?" Sophia looked at him with wide eyes, the weight of guilt and terror clear in her expression. She grabbed his arm, pulling him close. "It's not just about the deal," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I've been contacted by someone from my past, a person I thought I'd left behind." Jack's confusion deepened. "What do you mean?" "Who?" Sophia's eyes darted to the door, as if she feared someone might be listening. "It's James, he's back, and he knows everything." Jack could see the fear on her face. "James?" he repeated, the name unfamiliar to him. "Who is he?" Sophia's eyes filled with tears as she collapsed onto the couch, her hands trembling. "He's someone I trusted. Someone I thought I could control. But he's always been dangerous. He knows about the deal. He knows about everything. And he's threatening me, Jack. He's threatening everything." Jack's heart pounded in his chest. What does he want? Sophia looked at him, her expression filled with regret and fear. He wants me to help him. He wants me to give him control of the company, Jack. He knows things, he has leverage. And if I don't comply, he'll ruin everything. The room felt suffocating. The weight of the situation settled over Jack as he tried to process everything. James was not just a threat to Sophia's career, he was a threat to everything she had built, to everything they had worked towards. And he was using that leverage to pull the strings. Jack's protective instincts kicked in. We'll fix this. Together. Sophia looked at him, her eyes filled with a mix of relief and fear. But Jack, you don't understand. This man is dangerous. He's not someone I can just walk away from. He's my past, and I don't know if I can outrun him. Jack stepped closer, his determination unwavering. You don't have to outrun him. I'll help you face him, we'll face him together. Sophia's gaze softened, but a shadow of doubt lingered. I'm scared, Jack. What if he destroys everything? Jack placed a hand on her shoulder, offering what little comfort he could. We'll find a way to stop him. I won't let him take you down. Sophia nodded, but Jack could see the fear still lingering in her eyes. They were playing a dangerous game now, and the stakes were higher than either of them had realized. Sophia had made her decision to face James and the consequences of her past, but it was clear. This battle was just beginning. Sophia sat on the edge of her couch, staring at the floor, the weight of James's return pressing down on her like an anchor. The air in the room felt thick with tension, and Jack could feel the unease radiating from her. He had seen her in moments of stress before, but this was different. This was fear, raw and unfiltered. I don't know what to do, Jack, Sophia whispered, her voice trembling. He knows too much. He knows all the secrets I've been hiding, and he's not the kind of person you can just talk to. He's dangerous. Jack paced the room, his mind racing. The situation had escalated quickly. James, someone from Sophia's past, wasn't just a threat to her personal life. He was a threat to her empire, to everything she had built. And if he had leverage over her company, he could destroy it all with a single move. We need to confront him, Jack said, his voice firm with determination. You can't let him control you like this. We'll figure out how to deal with him, but we can't keep running. Sophia shook her head, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. You don't understand, Jack. This isn't just about a business deal. He knows things about me, things I've done, things I've said. If I don't play his game, he'll ruin me. Jack stopped pacing, turning to face her. Sophia, you've been running from this man for years. Maybe it's time to stop running. You have the power to fight him. You don't have to let him control your future. Sophia's eyes flickered with doubt. It's not that simple. He's a master manipulator. I've seen what he can do. He's already made threats, Jack. He'll go after everything: my company, my reputation, my life. Jack took a step closer, his voice softer now, trying to reach her. And what about your life? Do you want to live in fear, letting him dictate every decision you make? You don't have to fight this alone, Sophia. We can do this together. We can figure it out. For a long moment, there was silence. Sophia's eyes locked with his, and for the first time, Jack saw a flicker of hope buried beneath her fear. I don't know if I can do this, she admitted, her voice barely audible. But I can't keep living like this. I can't keep letting him win. Jack's heart ached for her. He could see the vulnerability in her. This was the real Sophia, the woman who had been carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders, pretending she could handle it all. But now, she was at her breaking point. And he wasn't going to let her face it alone. You don't have to, Jack said, stepping closer to her. We'll take him down. Together. Sophia's gaze softened, and she nodded, a reluctant sense of relief washing over her. Together, she echoed quietly. The next few days were filled with tension and secrecy. Jack and Sophia met privately, going over every detail of James's possible motivations, his connections, and the leverage he had over Sophia. They needed a plan, and they needed it fast. Sophia had hired a private investigator to dig into James's background. But the more they learned, the more complicated the situation became. James wasn't just any former lover or business rival. He was connected to some powerful people, people who had the means to destroy everything Sophia had built. I can't keep hiding from him, Jack, Sophia said one evening as they pored over documents. If I don't make a move soon, he'll force my hand, and I'll lose everything. Jack looked at her, his face hardening with resolve. Then we make the first move. We take control of the situation. We go to the authorities. Sophia shook her head, fear flashing across her face. You don't get it. If I go to the authorities, it'll be the end. They'll bury me, my company, my reputation, everything I've built will be destroyed. Jack took a deep breath, trying to calm her down. Then we have to outsmart him. We need to use his weaknesses against him. Sophia's eyes met his, and for the first time in a while, she seemed to have a glimmer of confidence. I know where he's vulnerable. I know his past, the people he's been involved with. If we can expose him, we can bring him down. Jack nodded, feeling a sense of purpose settle over him. Let's start there. We take the fight to him. We find the leverage we need to get him to back off. Sophia spent the next few days arranging secret meetings with people who had connections to James, and Jack worked tirelessly to gather the evidence they needed. They weren't just going to expose James for his threats. They were going to make him regret ever coming back into their lives. But just when they thought they had everything in place, the situation took an unexpected turn. It was late one evening when Jack received a text from Sophia, her words cryptic and urgent. "Meet me now, it's worse than we thought. James has escalated." Jack's pulse quickened. He knew that something had gone wrong. He grabbed his jacket and headed out, not knowing what he was walking into, but knowing that whatever it was going to change everything. When he arrived at Sophia's apartment, he found her standing by the window, her face pale and drawn. Her phone was in her hand, the screen cracked, but she didn't seem to notice. "Sophia," Jack said, his voice steady, despite the fear rising in his chest. "What happened?" She turned to face him, her eyes wide with panic. "He knows, Jack. He knows everything. The private investigator we hired, he's working for James. He's been feeding him information. Everything we've done, everything we planned, it's all been compromised." Jack's heart sank. This wasn't just a game anymore. James wasn't playing by the rules. He was willing to go to any lengths to win. "What do we do now?" Jack asked, his voice tight. Sophia's hands shook as she clutched the phone. "There's no way out of this now. He's coming for us. He's going to destroy everything." Jack took a deep breath, his mind racing for a solution. "We fight back. We don't give up. This isn't over." Sophia met his gaze, her fear evident but also something else, something she hadn't shown before: trust. She was finally allowing herself to believe that she wasn't alone in this fight. "I don't know what's going to happen next, Jack," she whispered, her voice breaking, "but I'm not giving up, not without a fight." Jack stepped forward, standing beside her, feeling the weight of the moment. They were no longer just two people fighting against a corporate adversary, they were fighting for their lives, for everything they had built, for everything they had risked. And as the night stretched on, Jack realized that this battle, this fight for survival, would change everything. It wasn't just about business anymore, it was about something far more personal. They had to win. They had to survive. And they would. Sophia couldn't breathe. Her heart was racing as she paced back and forth in her apartment, her mind spiraling with every possibility. She had made her decision, there was no turning back now. James had cornered her, and she wasn't about to let him win. But the reality of what they were up against sank in like a cold, harsh wave. Jack stood in the corner, watching her, his expression grim but resolute. "We need to act now. The longer we wait, the stronger his hold becomes. If we don't take the lead, he'll have us cornered, and everything we've worked for will be gone." Sophia stopped pacing, meeting his eyes. There was a fire in her gaze, something she hadn't felt in a long time. "I know. I know. But how do we stop someone who has every angle covered? He's got people everywhere. He's watching us right now, Jack." Jack stepped forward, closing the distance between them. "Then we have to outsmart him. We know his weakness now. We use that against him." Sophia took a deep breath, wiping her sweaty palms on her jeans. "We expose him. We get ahead of him before he makes the first move." Jack nodded. "Exactly. We use his own game against him. But we can't do this alone. We need to get our allies in place." Sophia looked down, her voice quieter now. "But how do we trust anyone? I've already been betrayed. If I go to anyone else? What if they're working for him too?" Jack placed a hand on her shoulder, his touch warm and steady. "I'll help you. You're not alone in this, Sophia. We're going to bring him down together. And we'll make sure he never hurts you or anyone else again." Sophia swallowed hard, her eyes glistening. She had spent so long carrying the weight of her past, burying it deep to protect her empire, but now she was finally ready to face it. The woman in front of her wasn't the untouchable CEO anymore. She was human. And with Jack by her side, she had a fighting chance. The next evening, Jack and Sophia met with their closest allies, people they trusted. Even if it felt like they were walking on a tightrope, they needed a strategy, and they needed it fast. Sophia called in a meeting with her most trusted executives, including Peter, her CFO, and Liza, her legal advisor. They couldn't afford to keep secrets anymore. The game had changed. "I need you both to be honest with me," Sophia began, her voice clear but laced with tension. "We have a major problem. James isn't just playing with us anymore. He's after everything we've built." Peter exchanged a look with Liza. "What exactly are we up against?" Peter asked, his voice serious. Sophia took a deep breath. "James has connections people I thought were on our side. He's been blackmailing me, threatening to expose my past, everything I've worked so hard to hide. He knows about the company's vulnerabilities, and now he's pushing for a hostile takeover." Liza frowned, clearly disturbed. "This sounds like a nightmare. You can't let him win, Sophia. But we'll need to play it smart." Jack spoke up, his voice calm yet urgent. "We need to turn the tables. We have to find out what he's really after. What's his endgame? We know he's greedy, but there has to be something more. And we need to act fast before he makes a move." Sophia nodded, appreciating Jack's steady presence. "We'll need to keep everything under wraps. I can't trust anyone outside this room, especially not Peter and Liza's teams. James is everywhere." The hours passed like minutes as Jack and Sophia worked through their plan, creating a web of countermeasures and strategies to outsmart James. They were going to use the information they had on him, the private investigator's findings, the connections he had with shady people, and expose his dirty secrets before he could destroy her. Sophia's heart pounded in her chest as the plan came together, piece by piece. This was it. They had a chance to win, but it was going to be dangerous. As they wrapped up the meeting, a sudden knock at the door made everyone jump. Peter opened it, and there, standing in the doorway, was James. His cold, calculating eyes met Sophia's, and for a moment, time seemed to stand still. "James," Sophia said, her voice tight with barely contained fury. "I wasn't expecting you." James smirked, his confidence unwavering. "I knew you'd try something like this, Sophia. You've always been a fighter. But you're playing a dangerous game. I've been watching you and Jack too. This isn't just business anymore, it's personal." Sophia's breath caught in her throat. "What do you want, James?" James stepped into the room, his presence filling the space. "You've been avoiding me for too long. I gave you a chance to make things right, but now, I'm taking it all. Your company, your reputation, everything." Jack moved slightly, positioning himself protectively between Sophia and James. "You're not taking anything, James. We know what you're up to, and we're not afraid of you anymore." James laughed, a cruel, hollow sound. "You think you can stop me? You don't even know who you're dealing with." He turned his gaze to Sophia. "I could ruin everything you've built in an instant. One word to the press, one call to the authorities, and it's all over." Sophia's eyes narrowed, a fire igniting inside her. "You can try, but you won't win this time." James smirked again, clearly enjoying the tension. "We'll see, won't we?" He turned toward the door but paused before leaving, casting one last, dark look at them. "Don't think this is over. I'll be back, and when I return, it won't be a negotiation anymore." As the door slammed shut behind him, the room went silent. Jack and Sophia exchanged a look, one that said everything. The real battle had begun. They had no time to waste. Jack and Sophia knew the next steps were critical. If they didn't act quickly, James would strike first. It was time to put the plan into motion. Jack met with Liza and Peter privately, ensuring everything was in place. Meanwhile, Sophia made a call to the one person she trusted most, her former mentor, a retired corporate strategist who had helped build the company from the ground up. "I need your help," Sophia said when he picked up the phone. "James is coming for me, for everything. I need to know how to beat him at his own game." The mentor's voice on the other end was calm, measured. "Sophia, you know how to handle this. Take what he's using against you, and flip the script. Expose him before he can expose you." Sophia's grip on the phone tightened, her mind racing as the pieces fell into place. "I'll make sure it's done." As the clock ticked, they prepared for the final confrontation, one that would determine the fate of everything Sophia had built. Jack stood by her side, unwavering in his commitment to seeing this through. The walls were closing in, but they had one chance to turn the tide. The night was heavy with the weight of what was to come. Sophia stood by the window of her penthouse apartment, gazing down at the city below. The lights glittered like 1,000 tiny stars, oblivious to the storm that was brewing in her life. Her heart was heavy, the nerves in her stomach twisted tight, but there was no turning back now. The battle she had tried to avoid for so long was finally here, and it was time to face it head on. Jack entered the room quietly, his footsteps soft but steady. He was carrying a folder, one that contained everything they needed. The information on James, the evidence of his shady dealings, the secret backdoor deals he had been making with other companies, it was all there, ready to be exposed. Sophia turned toward him, her gaze meeting his. She had been preparing for this moment for days, but now that it was here, the weight of everything seemed almost unbearable. Jack could see the unease in her eyes, but there was also something else: determination. "We're ready," Jack said, his voice firm, but filled with the same quiet resolve that had defined him through this whole ordeal. Sophia nodded slowly. "We are. But there's something I need to say first." Jack raised an eyebrow, stepping closer to her. "What is it?" Sophia took a deep breath, her chest rising and falling with the weight of her words. "I'm scared. I've spent my whole life building this company, this empire. And now, everything's at risk. I can't let James win, but what if I lose everything? What if this whole thing ruins me?" Jack reached out, taking her hand in his. "Sophia, you've already lost so much to fear, to James, to your past. But you're not going to lose everything. You have the strength to fight for what's right. You've already shown me that, and no matter what happens, you won't be facing it alone." Sophia's throat tightened at his words. She had known Jack for years, but she had never seen him this way: steadfast, resolute, unwavering. It was the first time she truly felt like she wasn't alone in the fight. Not just for the company, but for herself. "I trust you, Jack," she whispered. His gaze softened. "And I trust you. Let's finish this." The plan was simple, at least, in theory. They were going to use the information they had gathered to force James into a corner. They had gathered evidence of his illegal business dealings, his manipulation of company assets, and his ties to shady individuals. They were going to take that evidence straight to the press, but they had to do it at the right time, the right place. The plan hinged on one critical moment. James would be at a gala event that evening, one where the city's elite would be gathered. It was the perfect opportunity to strike. If they could release the information to the press just as James was making his grand entrance, it would publicly humiliate him and force his hand. Sophia and Jack sat in her office, watching the clock tick down to the event. Peter and Liza had managed to secure a leak to a trusted journalist, someone who had long been an ally of the company. At the same time, Jack and Sophia made sure that every key player in their organization was aligned, ready to execute their part. Sophia glanced at Jack, her nerves returning. "What if it doesn't work? What if we don't get the right timing?" Jack gave her a reassuring smile, though his own heart was racing. "It will work. We've prepared for every possible outcome. We've got this." As the evening approached, the tension in the room thickened. They were about to play their hand, and they couldn't afford any mistakes. James would either be exposed for the fraud he was, or they would lose everything. The gala hall was opulent, a sea of expensive dresses, tuxedos, and flashing cameras. The air was thick with the scent of perfume, the hum of idle chatter, and the clink of champagne flutes. It was a spectacle of wealth and power, exactly where James wanted to be. Sophia stood near the entrance, Jack at her side. They were blending into the crowd, their presence almost unnoticed in the sea of wealthy elites. But their eyes were trained on James, who had just arrived, looking every bit the charismatic, untouchable businessman he had always been. He moved through the crowd like a king, his smile sharp and calculated. Sophia felt a knot form in her stomach as she watched him. This was the man who had tried to break her, who had tried to use her past to destroy everything she had built. And now, she was about to take him down. Jack was already scanning the room, waiting for the right moment. They had made their move, now they just had to wait. The journalist they had coordinated with was in the crowd, ready to release the information to the media as soon as the time was right. James was speaking to a group of investors, his words smooth and confident. But as he spoke, Sophia could see the cracks he was pretending, hiding behind the facade of power. And soon, that mask would be ripped off. Suddenly, a buzz went through the crowd. A phone had received a message, then another, then another. Sophia felt her phone vibrate in her clutch, and she pulled it out. The message from their journalist read, "It's done, the story is live." Sophia's heart skipped a beat. She quickly opened the news app, and there it was on the front page. CEO James Lockwood linked to fraudulent business deals, illegal market manipulation exposed. The camera flashes intensified as James's face fell, his confident smile faltering for the first time. The room was abuzz with whispers, people checking their phones, all seeing the same shocking story. The confrontation. James's eyes immediately locked on Sophia. He strode toward her, his expression a mixture of disbelief and fury. "You think you've won?" he spat, his voice low but dangerous. "You think this is going to stop me?" Sophia stood tall, refusing to flinch. Jack stood beside her, his jaw set. "This is over, James," Sophia said, her voice steady, yet filled with an emotion she hadn't expected relief. "You can't manipulate people any longer. You can't control everything." James's face twisted with anger. "You think the press will protect you? You think you can destroy me with a headline? I'll take you down, Sophia. You haven't seen the last of me." Sophia didn't back down. She knew this was just the beginning, but she had already won. James's empire of lies was crumbling in front of him. His connections, his power, all of it would fall apart once the public realized the truth. "You've already lost, James," Jack said, his voice cutting through the tension. "And you'll never come back from this." James sneered, but said nothing more. He knew the game was over. For the first time in a long time, he wasn't the one in control. Sophia and Jack had taken it from him. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of legal battles, media storms, and corporate restructuring. James was arrested, and his assets were seized. The damage he had done to Sophia's company was considerable, but with his exposure, the worst was behind her. Sophia sat in her office one afternoon, reviewing the final reports. Her company was still standing, and she was still the CEO. But she wasn't the same person she had been before all of this started. She had faced her demons, and with Jack's help, she had come out stronger on the other side. Jack entered the room, his familiar presence calming her nerves. He leaned against the doorframe, a soft smile on his face. "How are you holding up?" Sophia looked up, her gaze meeting his. She smiled back, her eyes filled with gratitude. "Better than I ever thought I would. I'm starting to realize that maybe I don't have to carry the weight of everything by myself." Jack stepped forward, standing beside her. "You don't. Not anymore." The two of them stood there, side by side, ready for whatever came next. They had fought for everything that mattered, and now, with the worst behind them, they could finally look forward to the future together. The weeks following the downfall of James were a blur for Sophia. The media storm had settled, the company was slowly picking up the pieces, and the legal battles were in full swing. But as the dust settled, Sophia found herself at a crossroads. She had won the fight, but at what cost? Sophia sat at her desk, the weight of the past few months pressing heavily on her. Her company, her reputation, and her life had been thrown into turmoil by James' betrayal. And now, with everything seemingly back in place, she felt more lost than ever. The question that had been haunting her for weeks now echoed louder than before. Who am I outside of this role? She had spent so many years hiding behind the title of CEO, leading, strategizing, building. But in the wake of James' exposure and everything that followed, she realized something profound. She didn't know who she was without it. Jack's voice cut through her thoughts as he walked into her office, holding 2 cups of coffee. He knew her well enough to sense when she was deep in thought. "You've been quiet lately," Jack said, setting one of the cups down on her desk. "How are you really holding up?" Sophia looked up at him, her eyes tired. But there was a shift in her, an acknowledgement that she couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. She took a slow breath and leaned back in her chair. "I don't know, Jack. I've spent so much time being everything to everyone this company, the people who work for me, the investors. But I haven't stopped to think about what I want, what I need, and I don't know the answer." Jack pulled up a chair beside her and sat down. His presence was calming, unwavering. "You've been carrying the weight of the world, Sophia. It's no wonder you're feeling lost. You've been focused on survival, not living." Sophia nodded, her fingers absently tracing the edge of the coffee cup. "I thought if I just kept pushing forward, I'd have it all figured out. But now that everything's quieter, I don't know where I'm going." Jack's gaze softened, understanding the depth of her struggle. "Sometimes, it's okay not to have everything figured out. You've been through a lot, and you deserve to take time for yourself." Sophia met his gaze, her heart heavy with gratitude for his unwavering support. "But I've spent so long being the person everyone expects me to be. The CEO. The leader. What if I'm not that person anymore?" Jack smiled gently, placing a reassuring hand on hers. "You're still you, Sophia. You're just evolving. This is your chance to decide who you want to be, without anyone else's expectations." A small, tentative smile tugged at the corners of Sophia's lips. She had spent so long hiding from the truth, pretending that being in control, meant she was in charge of everything. But now, she was ready to take the first step toward freedom. Freedom from the weight of others' expectations and freedom to find herself again. Sophia made the decision that day. She would step back from her role as CEO. The company had capable leaders in place, and it was time for them to take the reins. For the first time in years, she was going to focus on herself, on her own healing, on rediscovering the person she had buried beneath the title. It wasn't an easy choice. She had built her entire identity around being the head of her company, but deep down, she knew it was the right decision. She needed to live her life, not for the board, not for the investors, but for herself. As the decision was made, Sophia felt a lightness she hadn't felt in years. The pressure that had been weighing on her was slowly starting to lift. Sophia spent the following months in quiet reflection, taking time away from the company to travel. She explored places she had always wanted to visit, met people from different walks of life, and learned to reconnect with herself. In one quiet corner of the world, far from the hustle and bustle of corporate life, she felt a sense of peace she hadn't known she was missing. It wasn't about finding answers, it was about finding the space to ask the right questions. She realized that she had spent so long building an empire that she had forgotten to build a life. Now, she was learning to live in the moment, to embrace uncertainty, and to find joy in the small things. One day, while visiting a small coastal town, Sophia received an unexpected message. It was from Jack, who had been her constant support throughout this entire journey. She had kept in touch with him, of course, but their conversations had been brief. He had always been there, but she hadn't seen him in person since she left the city. The message read, "I hope you're finding what you need, Sophia. But if you ever need to talk, or just catch up, I'm here." Sophia felt a warmth in her chest as she read his words. She had come so far, and yet, she realized she wasn't ready to leave everything behind, not yet. Jack had been the one person who had been there for her when everything was falling apart, the one person who had never judged her. That evening, she called him. "I miss you, Jack," she said, her voice soft. "I miss the way things used to be." Jack's voice on the other end of the line was warm, reassuring. "I miss you too, Sophia, and I'm proud of you. For everything you've done, you've come so far." Sophia smiled, her heart swelling with emotion. "I don't know what the future holds, but I think I'm ready to figure it out." Jack's words echoed in her mind. "Whatever you decide, I'll be here." As the months passed, Sophia's journey of self-discovery continued. She wasn't sure where life would take her, but she knew she was no longer bound by the expectations of others. She was finally free to explore who she was, outside of the roles she had played. And Jack? He was still by her side, just as he had promised. Their bond had grown deeper over the months. And Sophia realized that while she didn't know exactly what the future held, she was ready to face it, whether it was with him or on her own. For the first time, she was not afraid of what came next. In the quiet moments of reflection, Sophia understood that this was her real victory, not the fall of James, not the business deals or the headlines, but the rediscovery of who she truly was. And she knew, whatever path she chose, she would walk it with the courage she had found within herself.